For EVA2, again, we translate along the station and into the payload bay to start our operations. This next video kind of shows you a bird's eye view of what the translation path will look like for EV, in this case EV1. Translates underneath the space station, down along the laboratory module, across node 2, where he passes the arm, then down into the payload bay, and he meets up with EV2 in that location there. Again, we'll start out by being in the arm, and we'll remove the nitrogen tank from the underside of the carrier. The removal of the tank requires us to first open up an MLI cover, or a thermal flap, if you will, from around the nitrogen tank, and then we'll release 4 bolts that attach it to structure. We can then slide the tank off of a rail system that normally it secures it to the truss or to the hardware in the payload bay. The nitrogen tank weighs around 550 pounds, and it is roughly the size of a small refrigerator. As that work's finishing up, the EV1 will ride the arm to the truss segment. EV2 will spend a little bit of time installing thermal covers over the exposed trunnion pins on the Columbus module, and then he will translate out again to the P1 truss segment to get into position to help EV1 stow that first new nitrogen tank onto the CETA cart. Because it's so large, it's kind of a 2-person operation to secure that. EV1 will then work with the arm operator to get into position to pick up the empty nitrogen tank out of the truss, and EV2 will get into position again to help stow that onto the CETA cart. Then they will make a maneuver up to the new nitrogen tank, pick it up, and bring the arm over into position for the installation. EV1 will secure the bolts and the electrical connectors for the tank, and EV2 will translate over to the backside to again hook up the flex lines that run to the ammonia tank assembly. They'll then work together to release the empty tank and begin its maneuver back to the payload bay for its return. During this arm maneuver, EV2 will clean up the hardware that we temporarily installed on the CETA cart, take it back to the airlock, and then he'll eventually meet up again with EV1 back in the payload bay where the tank will be installed. That'll complete our work off of the arm for that EVA, so we'll reconfigure the foot restraint, and then we'll translate up back onto the space station and work with the 2 power cables that are part of the station to shuttle power transfer system. There are 2 cables that we'll be rerouting. One will run along the upper surface of the Node 2 module and hook up to the pressurized mating adapter. The other cable runs along the port, or the starboard and underside of the Columbus module, which you'll see as we fly around here. And this will be the first EVA that we actually get to work on space station with the Columbus module installed. So it'll be an interesting perspective for the crew to work with that piece of hardware. And that'll complete our EVA2 tasks. As we get into EVA3, again, we'll egress from the airlock and head right down to the payload bay. We will get onto the station's arm again and get into position for the removal of the solar payload. Solar is a sun observation experiment. They'll work together to release that, and then the arm will fly. In this case, it's EV3. We'll be working off the arm. Fly him into position for the installation on the uppermost platform on the Columbus module. The 2 crew members will work together to provide that fine alignment of the attachment interfaces and drive a single bolt for the attachment. The arm will then reposition Stan down underneath the Columbus module, where he will install another thermal cover over the last remaining pin on Columbus, this being the keel pin. Once that's complete, the arm will then position Stan over to the stowage platform where the CMG, or the counter moment gyro, is installed. They'll work together to open up a thermal cover on that piece of hardware and finally make some fine adjustments to secure it for return. And then they'll release the gyroscope from the pallet and begin the translation back to the payload bay. This video here shows what it looks like to have a guy on the end of the arm holding the CMG and being transferred by the RMS, or the SSRMS. That transfer happened back on 13A.1 before they did the initial change-out. And it will look very similar as Stan rides the arm back into the payload bay for the attachment onto our stowage pallet. The CMG weighs roughly 1,200 pounds, so it's a rather massive object. They spend quite a bit of time in the NBL working on aligning the hardware. We also have a facility where we can practice the mass handling aspects of handling large masses. Once the CMG is attached, we will reconfigure the foot restraint as well as the arm to get it into position to pick up the UTEF payload. We will work together to release that payload, and the arm will then fly Stan one last time over to Columbus's external payload facility. This time the payload will be attached to the pallet immediately below the solar experiment. That will complete our work on the arm, so Stan will egress off of the arm and remove the foot restraint. And then periodically throughout the EVA, as Rex has time, he will be installing some EVA handrails and some worksite fittings throughout the Columbus module. They were removed for clearance concerns while Columbus was being launched, and then we'll reinstall those for use on future EVAs. And it's during this time that we also might send Rex out to the Sarge to take a look at the underneath the thermal covers there. This video shows you our operations in the pool for practice installation of the handrails and the WIF. With the completion of EVA 3, we will have set a new record for the number of spacewalks performed in a year. It will be the 24th for 2007, and the prior record was 23 in 2002. And it's been a very busy year full of challenges, but we are excited about finishing on a very great note.